bit of orientation with the film. So, Ms. Walker, is there one set of these blinds that's better? I guess this set would be better. So that
it's nice and dark.
Yeah, but that's what I have to. Oh, you know. Just one of the things was kind of orient us geographically. So where are things, and where are we going, and a little bit of. Well, this isn't letting me do.
I need to learn how to say "It's my birthday" in every language.
Okay. Everyone.
Porque.
Like all of the 5 countries we're going out.
And why is that?
Because like my birthday is going to be while we're in one of them, but I don't know which one.
So you're going to teach us.
I'm looking for someone to teach me.
So do you want someone to teach you how to teach someone else?
No, I want someone to teach me to say "It's my birthday," so every single place I go, I can be like, "It's my birthday."
Monsieur Google can help you well.
Here we go.
Okay, so we don't have our tickets yet. We don't know anything, but we kind of said, you know, there's a really strong likelihood we're leaving out of Atlanta. Is that where you left in your trips and different things? One of the things about the trip is that while the flight from Atlanta to Berlin is 10 hours in the air, it's really going to be a 15 to 20 hour day depending on how long our layover is in Atlanta, because we're going to probably leave between 10 and noon here, because flights, international flights, all connect, and 15 to 30 flights stack up out here in the ocean off the coast, and they fly as a pack. So this is transatlantic flights most of the time, the cheap flights. They all fly as this pack, and so we are traveling over, and we're going to arrive. So our first day is all travel. This is a 10 or 12 day, if you're doing the extension, trip. So the 10 days, 8 nights, or 12 days, 10 nights. We have 8 nights on the basic trip in country, 2 nights per city. The extension to Vienna, it's 10 nights, 2 nights per city. So this really is a trip where we're going to be, you know, you never unpack your suitcase because you don't have time to repack it, kind of thing. I think somebody said before, there's not really going to be a time to do laundry. You don't want things that can't be rinsed out in a sink, kind of thing. So when we get to Europe, we're going to arrive there somewhere 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. We have to meet our tour director, get our luggage, which this now is, you know, we need to start multiplying this. This isn't 2, 3, 4, 5 people traveling. This is 40 people traveling. We catch the bus and we'll be taken probably to our hotel to drop the luggage. And
but if we have another small group with us, and they come later in the day, we wait for them. So
at the airport?
Isn't that what, it's a long day.
That's how it was for me. You don't necessarily go back to the hotel. We didn't go to the hotel until late that night, and so it was when I left to Rome, we were flying, and then we went and we toured Rome for a day, and then we slept. So it was like a 2-day.
Well, everybody does that, but you had your luggage stayed on the bus until you got there that night.
But it's
okay.
A long day.
So this really is more than one. You need to take advantage of sleeping on the plane, different things. And what it means is our first day in Berlin is day 2. You've flown overnight, but day 2 of the trip already is where we're in Berlin. In Berlin, we have 6 different things that we're going to see along the way, and that are for sure, but now things aren't lighting up, and this is kind of, I was just in here, Jordan. These have turned off since. This is bizarre. So we're going to come, our first trip is down here to a pedestrian area that has, it's really in the middle of Berlin. See the trees, Miss Oliver talked about this. This is Unter der Linden. It's under the, linden trees are under the lime trees, but they're not limes like we think of them. You can see the passageway on both, the car travel on both. If we come out of this a little bit, one of the most iconic pieces of architecture that we're going to see is the Brandenburg Gate. I mean, there's quite a bit in here, but it anchors at the end of this, so that's right there. And those are the two things that we kind of, that they're taking care of for us that first day. The second day, we really, and so if this is downtown, as Miss Oliver said last time, there's like 3 major rivers. The most important is is it Spree?
Spree.
So here is that river that kind of, and this is where part of our target time is the museum island. Okay, but the next day, we really are on the western side of town. And we are going to different places here. This is kind of bizarre. Things got turned on and turned off just in those few minutes. So this is a huge park. It's called a Tiergarten. Part of the zoo is here, but it used to be so we're going to start at the Brandenburg Gate. Kaiser Wilhelm is one of the pictures that we saw last time. This is the church that is the old Gothic church, and then the very modern octagon right beside it that's called the Lipstick and the Compact, because there's like a 2-story building right beside this very tall one. Kudam, it's Kurfürstendamm. I'm sure, I do not have the accent or the tongue for it. And this is another one that is a huge shopping area, but there's a lot of different things along the way. And so those are kind of the things that we're going to see that second day, and in between goes that. On our third day, we're going to be leaving Germany for Dresden. We're going to be leaving Berlin for Dresden. Dresden is in Germany. And so the likelihood is this is going to be our stop for lunch. It looks like it's, this distance from Dresden to Prague is 2 hours, so this looks like that's twice it. So we're probably going to ride for 4 hours, and they'll give commentary along the way, and then Dresden. And Dresden is noted for purchasing its well-known porcelain, which is a more sophisticated version, and very more fragile. What do you know? You don't know about Dresden?
And Meissen, Meissen. All of this is that clay. It's very white. I have a piece of it to show you. But Dresden is famous for porcelains, and Meissen and Leipzig, that whole area. There's a long vein of white clay.
But it's well known, and it's treasured, so its price is a little bit there. But it's also sometimes getting a small dish to keep your jewelry in the bathroom. Becomes a very nice gift.
They make earrings and necklaces of the small porcelain pieces. Very pretty.
But also, Dresden is known for World War II because it was one of the first carpet bombings that was just wiped out. And so what we'll see there really has been an effort to rebuild, and so some of the pictures that we have along the way are part of that. So this is our day 3 journey, and we will end, and that evening we're here in Prague. And so the next day, I don't know how early we'll get into Prague, if we'll do much. They don't have anything on our paperwork yet. But the next day, we have these different places. Now, the Charles Bridge is the photo that was on the cover of the brochure. And it has apostles. Is it 40? I was going to say 24, and then it was like 40 popped in my head. It's all these apostles, which
I have
aren't
a
40.
picture when we look at Prague. It's
But you've seen it already a couple of times, and there'll be more. And so it's a well-known, and it connects parts of the city. St. Vitus Cathedral, very well known in the world, and has a very unique tile work, and that'll be easily identifiable. So it's going to be one of the places they take us, one of the places they pay for us to go into. And this is on the 4th day. Will be Sunday. That we'll be walking around in Prague. Miss Oliver says it's very much an outdoor community, an outdoor.
We'll be looking at architecture. It's just a stunning city. Different layers.
I have a question. Is St. Vitus's Cathedral still an active church?
Yes.
So if we're there on a Sunday, we'll be there during a service potentially?
Possibly. And they'll probably block off tours until the service is over. And that's what we'll be in and out on Sundays like that. Other places too. So, and then that's why we have the guide. The guide will mark these things and make sure we're not stumbling over.
And we can they'll tweak the day some, so that we won't interrupt services, because they'll sometimes close down the whole.
Right. We'll just let you in the back.
So it's independent,
So it's open.
but they're pretty good about tweaking it.
The other thing that's right here, you can see that they're all in very close proximity when that pops open like that. The Golden Lane, they have a photo of it in the presentation that they're going. It's this medieval multicolor little lane that is the most common that's there. So that's where they're going to take us with this. And so then on, I lost the count of days. So the next day, we're leaving the Czech Republic. Prague is in the Czech Republic. And we are going to, before we leave, we're going to another city in the Czech Republic, Olomouc. And I'm not sure, it's other than being the former capital of Moravia, which I know historically kind of rings a bell. But I think more so it's a long journey, and here's where our break is for lunch, and there's some unique things that they're going to take us to. So we'll have these two places in.
Moravian crystal is very famous, and that may be one thing we see there is crystal making or something like that.
And one of the things to tell you about the different stuff along the way, and Miss Oliver has said this, that when she took the kids last year, but it happens every time, on any trip I've ever taken. Oh, I'm going to wait until I see something better and I'll come back to this. And you don't always get to go back to it, but especially on a tour where we don't have absolute control. So one of the things is, who do you have to get something for? You know, part of it is budgeting, and part of it is, how are you going to get crystal, porcelain, or something transported? You know, so a little bit of it is to let you know so that you're thinking about different things. And so we'll probably have lunch here, but at the end of the day, we are crossing over into Poland, and in the late afternoon, this is when we're going to stop at Auschwitz-Birkenau and see one of the death camps in the system. And then that night, we are spending in Krakow, and the next day touring Krakow. And here, very much similar. There's a cathedral that's of significance that's here. This one, pronounced Wawel? Wawel. W's in German have a V sound. And so Wawel Cathedral is, I think it has been deconsecrated. It's a museum. Isn't this the one where we'll see the lady in the ermine? Yeah. Okay. So we have a cathedral. This has this outcropping that where the legend is that the dragon lived underneath, and that's where they've put the main town because high ground is safer ground. And so we'll see the cathedral, we'll see the hill itself. It's known for its limestone, so probably again a new kind of porcelain or pottery will come from here. Polish pottery is very well known and has a very distinct style to it, usually in circular patterns. But I've seen it with dots, I've seen it with flowers that create that as their...
Very intricate, very detailed.
Okay.
And repetition, like you're saying, circles and dots.
Glani Square is just the town hall square, and that we'll see in here. And so we've started in Germany, we've gone to the Czech Republic, now we've gone due east into Poland. And the next day that we're moving, we are going to, this is probably our, the day that's going to be the longest travel day. We are going from Krakow to Budapest, and we're going to cross through Slovakia. And these mountains, do you guys know what Tyrolean means? The classical German style with high-peaked, small cottages, sometimes painted, not the murals or things, because I think that's more Black Forest, and I don't know that it's Tyrolean.
I think that's Heidi.
How do you spell it? Tyrol. Tyrol is a part of...
O-T-Y-R-O.
Right, okay. But the Alps, they look like these.
But these are very steep mountains that we're going to be crossing through.
Sharp peaks.
And for instance, right here, you can even see the snow peaks of that.
Are these, this is the Tatra Mountains?
Tatra Mountains that are in Slovenia. And so this day, while it's a direct shot, since they do announce that we're going through these mountains, mountain travel very often is circular travel, because you're going back and forth to get up one side of the mountain, then you got to go back and forth to get back around the mountain on the other side. So this is going to be a long day. Not sure whether they haven't identified where the stops are going to be or anything, how much they will give us, take us, let us see a space or eat someplace or different things. So to me, this is the one day that might have a little recharge time in it, but not really sure what they might have planned for that. Our destination is Budapest, which is in Hungary, okay? And so in Hungary, like the others, we've got a basilica, which is a church. We have Matthias Church, which is no longer used as a church. And we also have the Fisherman's Bastion, which is a place the fishermen guarded and looks out over. There's all of these are grand scenes. And then the Hungarian Parliament that is along in this way. Day 9, you go to bed and then wake up, day 10, people are flying out, coming back, or some of us are heading back west so that we can finish in Vienna for 2 nights and then fly out on the 3rd day. And Vienna's a couple of streets, Strasse, S-T-R-A-S-S-E. SS is very often a letter combination in German, so these are street, it means street, Strasse. So we have the Ringstrasse, which literally circles the city. We have the Kärntner Strasse. This is where Miss Oliver did her year abroad in school, so we will be well cared for there. The Opera House is well known in Schönborn. It was just there, where Palace are what we're going to see. So we are Eastern Europe. We start very north in Germany. Berlin is, I was shocked to see how far north Berlin was in Germany. This right here is Denmark, and here is Scandinavia. So we have Finland, Sweden, and Norway right there. So we are covering in this category, kind of, it's a zigzag, I guess. It's not even a semicircle.
Can you hold just 1 minute? Because I want to remind you all of something.
Do you want me to get closer?
No, just right here. This is Minneapolis, okay? This is when we are going to talk about sweaters and bring in something. But we are above Minneapolis in the weather that we are in. And when the sun is out, it's warm. But when that sun goes behind a cloud, we need something warm. We don't need 10,000 warm things, but it can. This weather can change so quickly. And we don't think about it. Summertime, we're Tallahasseans, we're in our flip-flops, we're in our shorts, but it can change on us really quickly. So
and
we are above Vienna most of our trip.
They say they have some very cold snaps in all of these locales, but Vienna is, Budapest is the furthest south we are. So Berlin, Krakow, and Prague are all much further north from that. If Minneapolis doesn't ring for you, Rome is on the same parallel as Philadelphia. So if you're an East Coast person, and Philadelphia, so that's right here, we are huge distance.
And it can be warm. If the sun is out several days in a row, it's warm, but the minute it goes behind a cloud, it's cold.
So it
we
means
need to be sure we have layers.
Yes.
Lots of layers.
Okay. Anything else that needs to be?
I would like to eat lunch in Slovakia.
Okay.
For the record.
In Slovakia. We probably will because we're going to be headed towards, what's the town?
I mean, it's like a little
It's in
bonus
Moravia.
Because
Moravia is just a little in the middle, and Slovakia is the eastern side of Czechoslovakia.
we're going to Olomouc, and we're driving to Budapest. Olomouc.
No, Olomouc and Prague, isn't it? Yeah, cool. No, Olomouc and
I think it's
Prague, then Olomouc on the way.
That's what you-
right, and then Olomouc, and then Budapest in Hungary, right? So I just told them
So Berlin, Dresden, Prague, Olomouc,
Minutes right.
Krakow.
Or the minutes are 5
furthest
fast.
east that
Do you
we're
want me
going.
to
So
talk
is it
about these
Krakow,
other things first,
Budapest?
kind of as a
What-
change
what
for
time?
Yeah.
Because we're
However you
driving
want,
to
and this is just 2 pictures
Slovakia.
of Dresden and then going into those cities. So however you want to do it.
Okay.
Can we at least get out of the car in Slovakia?
I'm sure we can. Yeah.
We haven't talked to the tour director.
We got a big group, we can tell them. please
I really
stop the
don't
car
wanna-
and let her put her foot in Slovakia.
Yes, I don't want to be like,
Okay,
oh,
but not
one
2
time-
feet, not 2 feet.
Oh, but I want 2 feet. I want 2 feet.
I'm sorry. We're gonna get another trip.
I might even want to
that
like touch
focuses
Ellie,
it.
did you have a
on
question?
Yeah, if we're driving through Slovakia, could we look at the route we're taking and look at the city?
We're gonna have a really good idea once we get to a month out. At that point, the tour director contacts me and I start saying we want to do this, we don't want to do this, and we get to start personalizing this trip even more. That's why turning in those forms with the 5 of the things you want to see in the city was so important. Is that it helps us know how to personalize the forms. If you didn't do that, you probably still can, but
I don't think a foot in Slovakia was on any of those forms.
I don't think so either.
But we are driving through Slovakia
If we're driving through
and all day, and so we have to have lunch.
And we have to go to the bathroom.
You know,
We have
so-
to, you can
Because I mean, I imagine we're crossing through.
Oh, my arm! I need to get
If
But I think they're willing to have a bathroom on the bus.
We try not to use the bathroom on the bus. EF tries not to because we stay on that bus.
Right.
And so we do try to make stops.
We'll make stops.
Yeah, that's good. But I'm just saying, if I don't want to like be like, oh, I went to Slovakia and I drove through it, but I never got out of the car, you know?
It's such a duration in the mountains, I don't think there is a possibility that we will not be stopping at least once, if not twice, in Slovakia. But one of the questions that I had was, will we see other EF tours?
Yes, we
Yes.
will.
We'll cross
Okay.
paths. You'll know the orange and blue backpacks. We'll see 'em. I don't know though. This is a little bit different tour. I know
This is the
Berlin.
first
we
year
will.
they've done this tour?
Berlin and
They've
Vienna.
done versions of this tour. It's varied a little bit. But real quickly, we talked about Dresden. Here's some pictures of it. It's pretty.
Dresden is the court city of Saxony. So it's ornamental buildings, very showy. It's a beautiful city.
That's all I have for it. So,
Okay.
what do you want to do?
You want me to do this? When I was looking up Krakow, I was reading about, I'm not a shopper, but I do like to bring little things back, and I think all of us kind of enjoy a little bit of looking at things. And so I thought, well, one of the things they were talking about Krakow, and Krakow is an art center, and there's a very famous art school there, and there are a lot of sketches, pencil things, drawings, a lot of modern stuff, but then they have old things. And there's this one store that intrigued me because they said that the Poles are excellent at poster art. It's just something that and I was thinking this might be really cool to take to your dorm room, really. And I think this one store goes back to the Soviet era. So at any rate, it started me thinking about what kinds of things might you look forward to, and I just want to do this really quickly. When you travel, I've got my suitcase back there. I'm going to show you. Space is very important. One of the things you always see in most cities, and they really do make nice souvenirs, and are pencil sketches and pen and ink sketches. This is from Vienna. This is the Stephansdom, St. Stephen's Cathedral. From Vienna. I framed it myself when I got home because of the size, but I could stack a bunch of these and bring people something small to let them know I was thinking of them when I was there. But I've treasured this because I've had it since I was a student, and it reminds me of Vienna when I look at it. I got this in a little tobacco store, little junk shop, but this is a little paperweight of the Brandenburg Gate. And I brought some of these home for people, and and I sit on my desk, and it reminds me of my trip to Berlin, and so at any rate, it's just Vienna has little things like this of just recognizable pieces of architecture, stuff like that. But you find them in odd places. Like I don't smoke, but I was walking by the tobacco store, and they had a bunch of these little things in the window. The Germans, I believe, and the Poles are very big on wood. Carved wood, all kinds of wood things, and so I think that's a craft that we could kind of look for when you're there. This made a nice little souvenir. This is the Vienna Opera House, and it tells you on the bottom about who the architect was and all that. It was just filled with candy, but it's very light. It's hard, so it fit in I could jam it into the suitcase. But actually, it was 5 shilling, 55 shilling, which is about. I can't even remember the conversion anymore, Mira, but it would be in euros now. But it was a couple of dollars.
Less than $10?
Yeah, less than $10. But it was just, I think this is actually in the Opera House gift store. But it was, huh?
We're going by the upper house.
Yeah, the Opera House in Vienna is on Kärntnerstrasse. It's right on the end of Kärtnerstrasse, so yeah, we'll go by the Opera House. But at any rate, this kind of stuff, again, make a list. The shopping can begin to drive your whole trip because you get towards the end and you don't have the things you want, and then you get anxious because you don't have something for everybody. If you see something and it's a price you want to pay, pick it up. Make a little list and then let it go, because there's a lot to do other than shop, but the shopping can enrich what you're doing. This is the porcelain. You can see the color of it. Porcelain was it was Chinese, and the secret of the glazes and all of that was, and this is a heavy piece, and a lot of porcelain is very thin and transparent, but it's a white, they discovered this white strand of clay in eastern Germany, and this is from Meissen, which is right near Dresden, and Meissen is characterized by these cross swords. It's an old 19th century, 18th century, but they paint on it. And what I saw when we were in Leipzig, which is next to Dresden, is they did make pendants and earrings and out of the small bits of the white clay, and then they would color them. They painted the flowers, are very common on there, but this is considered to be one of the arts of Eastern Germany, this porcelain clay that exists there. So I wanted to show you the place that is really most famous for its crafts. And I think Poland, I don't know that much about Poland, but I think Poland will also be this way as Hungary. This is finally turning yellow, but it's a lot older than you are. So, but this is a shirt that I bought in Budapest. And I think that, and I love white on white embroidery. It's hard to do. And so, but they're more famous for the colors. They put all the colors in here. But I love this one because of and all the smocking and everything that's on it. But that's something that you will see, I know, in Budapest. I have a feeling in Poland, too, because their folk costumes are highly embroidered. And so it's just something, and scarves and things, and table runners and all kinds, and those all pack well. So at any rate, something for you to think about. And this one is the last one I was going to show you. This is a piece of silk from Vienna, and the women in Austria, for fancy dress, will wear dirndls. You've seen the German costume, and they wear silk ones in the evening. So sometimes when you're coming out, or you're near the opera house and you see people coming out, you'll see women in formal dress, but you'll see some of them in the silk dirndl. And this is a dirndl scarf, and it's a very fine one. You can see it's woven on both sides, and you can see the fringe work that's on it. But I bought this in Vienna. There are folk crafts there too, and some of the shops. And there are a lot of scarves. In the markets, they come from all over the world, but there's a lot of scarves, and they make easy packing as well. Okay, so at any rate, there's one of the things. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power, and every guidebook talks about shopping, and they talk about local crafts and things. Educate yourselves, and then we can talk to the guide and then see about things. Yes?
Just for the general enrichment of the population that's in here, which is all female, which is kind of interesting. I heard a really interesting thing on NPR about how to get the most pleasure out of something, and it's been shown time and time again that knowing about something greatly enriches your appreciation of things.
Absolutely.
So they talked about how art history is a course that's pure pleasure because you just learn about things and then get to see it. And so I totally agree with that. It's really, if you want to get a lot out of this trip, know about it before you go.
Yes, put yourself into it and learn some things, and then we can tweak it and kind of see things. I'm going to talk to you about Prague today really quickly, and then I want to talk to you. I've been reading about Krakow, and I'm so excited about Krakow because I've never been there, and there's just so much there, So anyway, I'll talk to you about Krakow after we talk about Prague. Are you going to show some pictures from
I don't
Prague?
remember which one was first.
Prague's known as the city of bridges.
Right.
So right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bridges. Is it 15 that are in there or something like that?
Something like that.
And this is the Charles Bridge, and it goes to the Charles University, which is the oldest university in Eastern Europe, or in Central Europe. So it goes across here and joins the university. And that's the castle in the back that we'll see in Prague. Okay, so this is me.
All right, do you want me to go ahead to the pictures and come back?
do you have pictures or is this me? Am I?
I've interspersed all of our PowerPoints. So
Okay.
this is you, but
Okay, I'm just gonna talk to you really quickly. Like Berlin, Prague exists because of this. This is it's called the Vltava River, and the Germans called it the Moldau. So if you're a music historian, you may hear about music of waltzes that refer to the Moldau River. It's a reference to Prague. It's an old settlement because it's on trade routes, and so just like Berlin, the Celts came here. The Boy, which is this kind of a strange group, and they give it the name of Bohemia. So the Boy here, and they begin to call this area Bohemia. The Germans called it Bohemia. When it became the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia, the Slavic Czech name is used more often. But you hear the word Bohemia, you hear the river, the Moldau. This is a tribute to the very, very long presence of the Germans also in this area. The dominant group of Slavs, though, and this is the land of the Czechs. Okay, so it's again trade routes, and it's a very old settlement area. Okay, you want to get to the next one? Oh, I have this, don't I? Okay, so again, I have this. All right, and again, the Slavs begin to come in around the 6th century, and they settle, and they outnumber the Germans, and they become the majority, and then today remain the majority. But there is a very heavy German influence on the areas around Prague. Okay, in the 8th century, they begin to establish this castle area, and so this is called the I have to write it out, Rajany district of Prague. It's the very highest district where the castle is, and then they build down from that. Okay, so around 870, they put down the foundation for this castle. This is where the defenestration of Prague occurred, and so they throw them out the window from the Rajany castle at the top. Okay. All right, and again, Ms. McCarran was telling us this is a city of bridges. The oldest, the Juditha Bridge is the predecessor of the Charles Bridge, and it was the second stone bridge ever built in Central Europe. So this is a very old.
Is that a girl?
Juditha? I don't know. I just know that the Charles Bridge is now on that side of that. But we'll stop for a minute and remember Juditha.
Hashtag feminism if it is.
Okay, all right. So, okay, and more Germans show up, okay? So, Rajany, the area around Prague Castle, the castle district as it's called, the city begins to spread out from there, okay? And again, the town hall that we're talking about, the 14th century here, and the construction of St. Vitus Cathedral begins in 1344. I love this. It ends in 1929. They are building on it until 1929. Okay, so this is the St. Vitus Cathedral here. Okay, now those of you who took European history, you remember Jan Hus, who was a century before Luther, and he leads a sort of early Reformation, and he's burned at the stake at the Council of Constance. If you remember, we'll see this statue. It's a very famous statue. It was of Jan Hus. It was built during the Soviet domination of Czechoslovakia, and it was a reproach to authority that is misused. In Hus's case, the authority of the church, and the builders of this statue, the authority of the Soviet Union imposing itself on Czechoslovakia. But at any rate, we have the Hussite period is in the 15th century, and then in the 16th century, the Habsburgs begin to be the kings of Bohemia. Remember, it was an elected position, and the Habsburgs are elected, and they hold on to it. So until 1918, from 1526 till 1918, this is a Habsburg city. Okay, so Prague is a Habsburg city. Now, because of that, the emphasis was on an international style of architecture, and this is also the Baroque period. So the Habsburgs encouraged this discouraging Czech, local Czech allegiance. We're going to see one of the most beautiful cities in Europe is Prague, and this Baroque area of Prague, which has now been restored since the end of the Soviet Union, is very beautiful. So, but this is the influence of the Habsburgs trying to distract the Czechs from their own particular national history. But in 1848, the revolutions of 1848 would begin. Of course, this is the time of a kind of romantic interest in your own culture, and we have a revival of the Slavic and Czech interest in Prague. So the 19th century is marked by that, okay? So, and if you remember too, this is the time, 1618 to 1620, is the Battle of White Mountain, and the Czech nobility.
The Danish one? Is that the one with the Danish one?
Yeah, that's at the beginning. It's the Bohemian phase, or Bohemian phase. We can talk about the 30 Years' War the whole time. Okay, all right. Now, in 1918, of course, Prague becomes the capital of the new state of Czechoslovakia, and this is the Wenceslav Square, is the center of Prague, and I want you to see these crowds. Now we're going to see another crowd scene later. Okay? Good King Wenceslaus is from Prague, and we can sing that while we're there. On the feast of Stephen, when the snow lay round about, even Christmas even. Okay, somebody else can work on the tune. I have the words. Okay, all right. Prague becomes the capital of the new state. All right, now, during the time period of Hitler, remember that all of this around here was German. So these are what are called in Germans, Süd is south, these are the South Germans. They were put into Czechoslovakia in 1918, and this is the pretext that Hitler uses to come in and take Czechoslovakia. He takes the Rim first, and when they don't protest that much, they did, but when the countries around did not protest that much, he comes in and takes the rest of Czechoslovakia. So Czechoslovakia, the Sudeten Germans are taken into the greater Germany that Hitler creates, and he creates a kind of little trunk state here of the leftover Czechoslovakia. Then in 1945, there's an uprising against the Nazis, and then the Soviets come in, and the source I used put quotes around the liberation of Prague by the Soviet army. Okay? Now, Prague was the only, Czechoslovakia was the only country before the Second World War that did not go to dictatorship. And they're very proud of this, that they maintained democracy. They were the only country in Eastern Europe to maintain democracy up until they were taken over by the Germans. After the war was over, they were very anxious to join the West, to get rid of the Soviet Union. And for about 3 years, it looked like they were going to get away with it. But in 1948, there was a Soviet-engineered coup and an overthrow of the elected Czech government, and the Soviet-dependent Czech government, communist government, was put in place. So in 1948, the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia, with Soviet backing, assumed control of the country, and Czechoslovakia was taken into the Soviet bloc. Now, the strongest pushback was 20 years later with the Prague Spring, where we had a political era of political liberation. And of course, this was the summer of love, and they wanted to be in the summer of love, and they sang, if you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear flowers in your hair, while they were throwing Molotov cocktails at the Soviet tanks. But they didn't win, and of course, they were crushed with the Warsaw Pact. Troops came in and crushed that. So at any rate, now here's the same picture that we saw in the First World War. This is Wenceslav Square. But this is 1989, with the end of Soviet domination in Czechoslovakia. So in 1989, it's called the Velvet Revolution because it was so gentle. But the Velvet Revolution starts on the 17th of November, resulting in the collapse of communist rule and the country's conversion to a parliamentary democracy. 1990, the first free elections in Czechoslovakia since 1948. And in 1993, we have the split where the Czech Republic and Slovakia separate.
Are they two ethnic groups that are?
Yeah, they're the Slovaks and then they're the Czechs. And they're both Slavic, but it's like the Slovenes and the Bosnians. They're both Slavic, but they have different orientation, and they thought this would work better.
And it was like a peaceful breakdown.
Right, everything is peaceful in Czechoslovakia. It's the Velvet Revolution, okay? So, and I want this is my last thing to share with you. On March 12th in 1999, they did join NATO. In 2004, along with 15 other states, they were brought into the European Union. So they're European Union members, they're NATO members, and they also belong to the Schengen Accord, which means that they do not put any barriers. If you are a European Union passport holder, you can go through any border in the Czech Republic, I think, without even showing your passport anymore. I will have to see that. I don't know how they know I'm not a Schengen member and this is a Schengen member, but it's somehow you're supposed to be borderless, and they joined that on January 1st, 2008. And I was going to put up the Czech flag, but it's boring. It's just triangles. So this at least is their national emblem, has a little Habsburgs and a touch there and some lions and stuff. At any rate, that's the emblem of Czechoslovakia. All right. So, at any rate, this is all just what we talked about. We don't have to go over that, but the early settlement, the Slavic growth, the Bohemian bridges, Germans, Hussites and Habsburgs, Imperial Baroque and National Revival, National Capital in 1918, Occupation and Liberation between 1938 and 1945, Communism and Resistance between 1948 and 1989. Post-Soviet era, 1989 to 1993, and then the integration into Europe, Western Europe, with NATO and European Union and so forth to the present. Ta-da! Okay, and that's Prague. Okay, so.
Here's a map of Prague, real quickly.
The bridges?
She's gonna start talking again.
Okay,
so
I'm
you can
sorry.
applaud then.
Go ahead.
This is the map of Prague showing the bridges, showing a lot of the major things that we're gonna be seeing.
It's got a little laser thing on it. One.
So. Charles Bridge, same, pretty much the same picture.
Why, does it always look like that by that?
No, it's just people everywhere I read said to go see it at dawn when it's empty. Otherwise, it gets packed because
Yeah,
that's
it
where all
is.
the vendors go, and that's where everyone is trying to sell things
To
because
sell
it is such a
things.
big touristy site.
But see, you're going from the Baroque town up into the Castle District, and everybody does it. And then, of course, you have the university is between the two, so it's full of people all the time.
This cathedral we're talking about has several different names. That's its official name. But sorry, I'm
I
sorry.
think Wenceslas is a chapel inside, if I remember correctly.
That was the official name that I was seeing, but I think
Okay.
you're right. Yeah.
This has a bunch of chapels in it, inside this one cathedral. Is that common?
I'm trying to go quickly so we can have the square, as Oliver was showing you pictures of,
Wenceslas Square.
Old Town Square.
Oh, I really want to see that clock.
The astronomical clock.
Oh, that's what that one is. And it's,
Oh, sorry.
the-
Oh, this is Miss Hobbs.
Yeah, no, Miss Oliver already said this as I was trying to learn about Prague. It really is mostly architecture that we can appreciate there. So this is a Gothic cathedral. There's St. Vitus.
Does it have flying buttresses?
You can see clearly the flag.
Oh, they're up top though. I was looking for them
Yeah.
out to the side. And what are the other three things?
And,
Barrels.
you guys are breaking my
Pointed
heart.
arches.
Yes, pointed arches.
Barrel walls.
This is the oldest synagogue in Europe, and the convent is now an art museum, but it's just nothing that we've heard of, styles that we would have studied, a lot of like Byzantine and sort of, stuff from the Middle Ages, but these two buildings were built by the same group of stonemasons. I thought that was kind of interesting. They were already there to build the convent, and then they built the synagogue.
Are we gonna see the synagogue?
Yeah.
Touring the old Jewish area of Prague is very much a part of general, I'm sure, and we can ask, but it's, Hitler wanted to kind of make a mockery of, and he allowed this synagogue, I don't know if this is the synagogue or if it's there, but the oldest synagogue in Europe is in Prague, that's still standing. And so, I'm sure we're gonna see at least part of the Jewish quarter.
And then this is Prague. I just learned this is very famous for its Art Nouveau style. Has a really nice collection of Art Nouveau buildings, which are 20th century, really pretty architecture.
Is that famous? There's like a famous Polish band. I don't know. It was in the Rick Steves movie. All the ladies, and it's like really cool posters.
Yes, the posters with the ladies belt flowers.
Yeah, and
that's
they're all
Art
kind of
Nouveau.
like that stained glass kind of.
Yeah.
We see in Vienna a lot of Art Nouveau, because they were trying to, before the First World War, Austria was losing a lot of energy, and they were trying to find new styles that would revitalize their culture, and this is called Jugendstil in German, and it's very important, and you see a lot of it in Central Europe, Art Nouveau. Are you gonna show, this show, do you have
Yeah, I just have pictures. So
you show and talk first, because I'm just gonna talk for a minute. There's a couple of things I just wanted to tell. This is really cool.
just an overview of Krakow. Krakow, Rick Steves kept calling the Boston of Poland, which I don't know what the New York and Chicago is, but this is the Boston of Poland, in case you were wondering. This is an overview of the city. It's a much smaller, more condensed city. They have a park. The Planty, is that Oliver's? I don't know. My pronunciation is horrible.
I don't know. We'll all have
but
to
that-
learn.
It follows the entire city. Along with that is you're going to see a city wall that's going to follow that. Still pieces of it are up, not the entire thing. One of the neat things I saw about Krakow is it is one of the places we're going to want to do some of our souvenir shopping, is because as it was developing, they required all the merchants passing through to sell their products at a discounted price.
Oh, this is the one with the square?
Mm-hmm.
That they
And
sold
so
it.
they sold it at a discounted price, and then the merchants then could sell it, and it allowed the city to thrive. That cheap price has continued for our good fortune. So it's going to be a place, especially with the exchange rate, it's going to be something we really wanted. This is where I'm planning on doing most of my shopping. It's just, so. This is the park. It goes around the entire city. There's many different views of it. It's a pretty park. At the end of the park is you're going to have a fort in the city wall. You can the city wall obviously used to surround the city. It does not any longer. But pieces of the city, and they have this fort there
For the purpose of?
protecting. It was a place to withdraw, stay safe from people like you. So, yeah.
Or the Norwegian.
St. Mary's Church was a pretty popular church. It's a place where if you go at noon, it has this beautiful centerpiece that the nuns will open up, and it has all sorts of.
Is that the one they saved? No?
Is it what?
There was one like really famous altarpiece that like nuns like saved, and they were all like nothing. All right.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
We'll know more. We'll ask, because our guide will know
Okay.
and be able to help us.
Because there was like a really famous one, and it was like the best example.
And it was
of
in Krakow?
I think it was somewhere like that. It was somewhere where like the Nazis had taken over, and they like.
Yeah, the Nazis turned this into,
Stealing
this was the
everything?
capital of Nazi Poland. So they took over Krakow.
So